The spoilers are out for My Hero Academia, Manga Chapter 342, and let's just say that if you are a shipper of Deku and Uraraka, let's just say that from what we see with the spoilers, you're going to be eating real good tonight, and we'll talk more about that, but first, right after this. Hey guys, how's it going? It is your boy, Manga Mandrew, and I'm here to cover the spoilers for My Hero Academia, Manga Chapter 342, and from what we see with the title and the spoilers, it's most likely going to be called The Calm Before the Storm, or some iteration of that, which makes sense because from what we see at the end of this spoilers, yeah, everything is about to get set off the next chapter. But we're not talking about the next chapter, we're talking about this current one, and from what we see with the spoilers, we are going to be heavily focusing on the students and seeing a lot more interactions between them, as well as concretely setting a lot of the matchups between certain characters. So, let's dive right into the spoilers as we're starting off with the text spoilers that says that the chapter begins with two civilians inside of UA passing a message between each other that All for One is back giving orders. He has asked them to create an uprising of some kind involving the refugees who still doubt the heroes. Shigaraki should be ready in less than a week. They need to make sure Midoriya gets out of UA again. So from what we see with that first line of text spoilers, yeah, what All for One said about him having multiple friends is very true because he had traders via Aoyama in the heroes section, but he also has traders within the civilian section. So he's going to try to use them to stir up trouble and try to get Deku out of UA. So it kind of brings more into context exactly what he meant in that moment when he said that he had friends, and this is kind of what he was saying and what he meant. And from there, we get more of the text spoilers that say that in the dorms, we see the students returning exhausted from patrol. Ida's new uniform allows his mask to disassemble automatically, and he tells them how important it is that they are out on the streets helping the professionals, that there is no time to complain or rest. Deku comments internally that he wanted at least some time to talk about something and looks at Uraraka. He is distressed that he hasn't been able to properly thank her yet. All Might arrives at the dorms accompanied by Tsukachi and Nezu. Momo asks if they have to come to give them news about Aoyama. Tsukachi confirms, and All Might says that he also has one more matter, one that only a small group of people can know about. They will discuss Plan B for the final battle. Next, we see a montage with several characters. Hawks, Ragdoll, Endeavor, and Genus are talking in a destroyed room. Endeavor looks at a pad of paper and makes a sad face. Aizawa is in the hospital watching Kurogiri. Aoyama is in his cell, and the students are listening to what All Might has to say. So there was a lot being set up in this text spoilers, as well as the few panels that we have, and for the most part, this kind of confirms an idea that I had, that they must have had multiple plans in place. We only know one plan outright, which is most likely separating Shigaraki from All for One, the physical body, but we're getting more explanation that there is going to be a second plan. And the fact of the matter is that we aren't hearing it means that most likely we won't see how the plan goes until it either completely accomplishes its goal or it completely fails, which is going to happen when they actually get into the fighting. As well as we get a little bit more of setup of what the other characters are doing, specifically what the pro heroes are doing, which we still don't have a whole lot of detail about that. We know that Aizawa is still in the hospital watching Kurogiri, but probably one of the most interesting things is that Aoyama is actually in prison. So yeah, even though he did be sort of forgiven by his friends, he's still facing some form of consequences, which is him being actually in prison. So that's going to be something that I really want to address a little bit more in the review when the actual chapter comes out. So yeah, there was a lot of neat stuff there, and a really heavy focus on Deku wanting to interact with Uraraka, which we will get later on in the spoilers, and most likely in this chapter. Going on to the next line of text spoilers, we start off by it saying that the next day the refugees are discussing an announcement that the principal made earlier. He said that Shigaraki must start moving in 4 days. The civilians from earlier in this chapter, most likely the traders, who was passing the message from All for One, looks shocked. Class A is about to leave UA and thanks everyone. Kota asks if Deku is really leaving, and he confirms, saying that he has rested enough to get all of the mud off. Snipes says that everyone's safety is their priority and asks them to remain calm even if UA barriers get activated. The infiltrator thinks this is stupid and that the best thing to do would be for the heroes to stay in UA, but he is satisfied that the order to send Midoriya out has been fulfilled somehow. So yeah, we're actually getting the students most likely leaving UA, and from what we see with the next line of text spoilers, it is established that they are moving out of UA at the very least permanently for now, as we're most likely going to get fun interactions between them, as well as this is most likely tying into the plan that we haven't seen for why they're actually doing this. Because with the next line of text spoilers, we see that a sequence of panels of the students saying goodbye, showing Inko, the Todorokis, Bakugo and Jiro's parents, Eri, and even the giant lady shaking hands with Shoji. The class goes to a facility located 30 kilometers from UA called Troy. It was built by Cementos, Power Loader, and Ectoplasm, and is much like the dormitories, with everyone having their own room. So yeah, that's more confirmation of what I just said, and the fact that they're moving into a new area called Troy is just really hammering in the idea that this is all going according to a specific plan, because most likely the Troy is in reference to the Trojan horse, a way of infiltrating the foreign base for the Trojans. So it's most likely a reference to that, so I will probably discuss that a little bit more. But from what we see with the next line of text spoilers, we have that Deku looks out the window and sees that Uraraka is alone outside. So he jumps out and goes to meet her. After asking if she is done emptying her bags, he thanks her for the speech she gave. She says that she didn't do anything too big and that he's making a big deal out of something small, as he always does. So now that the students have moved into their new dormitory-like area, we're actually going to most likely get a conversation between Deku and Uraraka, and this is kind of where most likely the shipping fodder is going to come in. Especially with the next line of text spoilers that we have, where we have Deku asking why she was alone outside, and she says that she's watching the city. A moment of silence follows. She says that she thinks she's strange, and Deku disagrees vehemently, citing several of her good points: her strength, courage, kindness, and even her hairstyle. Uraraka is embarrassed and asks him to stop. She thinks that she is strange because at the moment when she was speaking at the top of UA, she remembered Toga. When they faced each other during a Gentomachia stampede, Uraraka told her what she considered right, but Toga only replied with a sad expression. She understands that the destroyed city she now observes is a consequence of the actions of the villains like Toga, but she feels uncomfortable not knowing what's her point of view. And to tie into the next line of text spoilers, she says that looking at the city is a way to remember all the evil, so that she won't think about these things and do something stupid. Deku says he understands her because he saw a young boy crying inside of Shigaraki. Even though confrontation is inevitable, he doesn't want to ignore that side. Uraraka looks at him, reflects, and says that in this case, the two of them are quite strange. So from what we see with that text spoilers, this is very heavily most likely hinting at most likely their relationship between each other potentially developing into something more romantic, but also it establishes how they view their potential main fights in the war. With Uraraka, it's Toga, and with Deku and Shigaraki, and how they very similarly have a similar line of thought about how even though they know that they have to fight these villains and they know that they have done things wrong, that doing so is going to leave them a little bit empty inside, and most likely they recognize that they want to help them even though they have to fight them. And that this is something that we see even more with Shoto, because from there we also have the next line of text spoilers that say Bakugo, Ida, and Kirishima go to Todoroki's room. He thanks them for their concern, but says that he is fine. Ida comments that because he has an older brother, he understands Shoto's pain a little, but Shoto himself says that it must have been much heavier for him because he and Tensei are close. Shoto himself doesn't even know what Toya liked. Bakugo jokes that it's probably hot udon, and Todoroki smiles, saying that if that's the case, then they can eat it together. And going to the final lines of the text spoilers, we have Shoto saying he will stop Toya for sure, and we see a glimpse of Deku and Uraraka watching the city once again. The chapter ends with All For One holding a communicator and saying, "Let's get started." The narration informs, day of the planned start, today. So, from what we see, most likely we are also setting up Todoroki's interaction with Toya, aka Dabi, and that the characters of Shoto Todoroki, Izuku Midoriya, and Ochako Uraraka are most likely going to have a similar dynamic, fighting against their respective villains and having some form of remorse, and most likely will try to save them. As well as the end of the text spoilers show that the final part, or where the war is most likely going to begin, is going to start next chapter, as the plan will start today in most likely respect to next chapter. So yeah, that's pretty much all the spoilers that we have for this chapter for this week. From what we're seeing with the spoilers, it's going to be a very standard sort of catch-up chapter where we're going to get a little bit more interactions between the students and how they're really feeling about this situation, primarily when it comes to the characters of Shoto, Uraraka, as well as Deku, which makes sense because their main fights are going to be most likely against some of the main villains, Dabi, Toga, as well as Shigaraki. So it makes sense that we are going to have that set up right before the actual war begins, as well as we got a little bit more most likely set up for the plans that are going to be in place that are either going to fail miserably or fail successfully. That may not make any sense, but it actually does. Just trust me. So yeah, that's all the spoilers that we have for right now. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. Hopefully you are going to enjoy this chapter when the actual translations come out, and wait for me to do my review of this chapter when it comes out. So yeah, that's all I really have to say. If you like this type of content and you want to see more of it, why don't you just subscribe to my YouTube channel and yeah, do all that cool stuff, and hopefully I'll be able to catch you in my next video. Goodbye!